Hey everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 138. My name is Russell Frost. I am half the hosting team here this week, and wow, do we have a show for you. We have a big panel, we have amazing guests, and we have a cutting-edge topic. I can't think of anything else we could do but maybe introduce Mr. Danny Cooper.
Hello. I'll be your co-host for the evening. Danny Cooper from PriusChat.com. Always good to see everybody out there, and it looks like we have a good crew doing the live chat and the live viewing tonight. So glad to see everybody.
Oh, good. Thanks for monitoring that, Dan. I appreciate that.
It's like my one job on the show. I can do it.
And I can't, because I can barely talk into the microphone, much less if I start reading things, then I just seize up and it gets ugly. So not fun. So let's get right into it rather than waste time. Our panel this week consists of none other than our friend in Illinois, Mr. Tony Schaefer.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Third week in a row, I'm drinking my Scurry from Chicago, local brew.
You haven't finished that yet?
You know, I only drink when I'm around intolerable people, so I still have like 3 more to go.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. And let's see, our man in Oregon, Mr. Patrick Connor.
Hello from Oregon, the state where the Kingsmen recorded Louie Louie. And I mention this because the lead singer, Jack Eli, has just passed away in his Redmond, Oregon home at the age of 71. Go ahead. Yes, let's hear a little Louie Louie.
There we go. Well, we'll get back to that.
Here's one to Jack. Oh, okay.
And we have the only man in the United States of America who can run a Tesla dead. Evan Busco.
It had to come up.
Yes, I was successful.
He's not the only one who can, but he's the only one who has.
Has on video, live.
No.
The only thing disappointing about that was that you didn't Periscope it so we could watch it live.
So does their software just say, "Hey, stupid"?
Yo. You know what? It's pretty close to that.
Do we get to call you Broder now?
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
no, I took responsibility for what I did. He didn't.
There you go. And our last panelist, and certainly not least, we haven't seen her in a few weeks, and we missed her terribly, the lovely and talented Miss Chelsea Sexton.
Aw, we still got to work on your standards, but it's always lovely to be here.
Thank you. And as I said at the beginning of the show, we have very special guests. Unless you've been comatose, you know what the show's about this week. We have 2 people from Toyota, headquarters in Torrance, California, with us, and the entire show is going to be dedicated to talking about their hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, the Mirai. So let me introduce them, and then we can get going to the interesting part of the show, which isn't me babbling into the microphone. First, let's see. His name is Doug Coleman. He is the National Marketing and Communications Manager for Advanced Technology Vehicles for Toyota Motor Sales USA. Mr. Coleman, say hi.
Hi. It's great to be here.
Thank you very much.
We don't get to drink beer, though, while we're doing the show, so I'm a little disappointed about that.
You're at a serious disadvantage.
Yeah.
Well, you could always drink wine.
Maybe. Let me see if I got underneath.
I was going to say, I thought 6 o'clock in Torrance was free vodka shots hour. Isn't that? You guys don't do that anymore?
Or do you still have to pay for it?
Canceled that, unfortunately.
Canceled?
After you guys visited.
Should have the Don Draper-esque bar to the side, just off camera.
Exactly. We need a drink. Someone's conscious.
Good idea.
And having Doug's back this week is, you know what, is Logan Grizel. Logan is in national, marketing and communications as well for advanced tech vehicles. And he is our Mirai technical expert, is that correct, Logan?
It is. Hello.
Say hi. And if you look carefully behind Logan, you can see the Mirai website printed out on his wall. He loves it that much.
You know, you got to own it, know it, and love it.
There you go. And I'm sure if you don't live alone, I'm sure those loved ones that live with you appreciate you mumbling about the Mirai in your sleep at night.
Every little bit. Every little bit.
So let's get it going. You know what? Let's start maybe Doug or Logan. I'll let you guys decide who. Can you give us like a little overview just of of the Mirai program and what your intentions are with it, what you hope to achieve, what you're going to do, and we'll start from there.
Sure, Lo, you want to go for it?
Delegation.
That is true leadership at work right there. The Mirai is Toyota's release of the first commercially available fuel cell platform. We've been doing fuel cells in the U.S. for a little bit over a decade. We brought the first one here in 2002, and then did 3 different generations of fuel cells along the way, changing little things, improving range, improving performance, shrinking the size of the system. Our previous systems were so large they wouldn't fit in anything but SUVs. And we finally gotten it down to a size that we can fit it into just about anything, even a small car. So with Mirai, we're getting it out there and giving the ability for people to experience electric drive in a way that some people, like myself, can't do right now. I live in an apartment complex, and I drive a Prius plug-in, but I don't get to plug it in. So I went through, and I appreciate the ability to drive electric, and the fuel cell offers that.
Well, thanks, Logan. Doug, anything to add to that? Is that pretty much where you guys are headed with Mirai and what it's about? Dramatic pause. I'm going to take that as a yes. And I'm thinking maybe there's some audio issues there, but we're going to work on that. So let me ask the first question then. And Logan, this kind of goes to, more directly to what you just said. One of the things that I think is interesting about the Mirai is was Toyota's choice to make a personal automobile powered by hydrogen fuel cell. Now I realize you guys don't make trucks; you're not Volvo or Peterbilt or anything like that, but fuel cell technology actually works really well for commercial vehicles, for larger vehicles, and for vehicles that fuel in a central depot, that have known routes. The infrastructure costs less. It makes a lot of sense. So I'm kind of wondering, was there discussion about why you want to apply this technology to personal vehicles when the challenges are ginormous? And that's a technical term.
I love your technical terms. Actually, we did talk about that, and our parent company who's developed this technology in Japan has announced that they're working on a bus that's going to be used in the Tokyo Olympics. So the big technology side we are tackling as well. Being Toyota, we're never happy to tackle just the easy sides of problems, though, and we want to increase electrification across the board. We have electrified even our internal combustion engine cars, increasing our electric AC units as well as our electric power steering and other pieces, and all that improves the efficiency of the vehicles. But for the fully electric, there's the plug-in options, which offer some excellent benefits, and then there's the fuel cell option. The fuel cell option allows people like myself who don't have the option of plugging in because we don't own our own homes to also participate in the industry. And there's also some people who just aren't willing to make the lifestyle trade-off choices. And by bringing the fuel cell to the consumer market in a consumer sedan, we can offer up more electrical options to more parts of the market.
Well, that's one of the interesting aspects, because it seems like for 20 years that we've all been playing in this space, the conversation has been very much fuel cells or EVs, and the two pitted against the other, when in fact they sort of are different things for different spaces, and truly there's both political and technological common ground, but also competition really between decently electrified plug-in hybrids compared to something like a fuel cell. I mean, if the claim in the the marketing behind fuel cells is sort of long-range fast fueling compared to a 100-ish mile electric car, Volt or a Mitsubishi Outlander or something with some decent plug-in. What do you think for a buyer who can get a basically zero-emission vehicle that runs on cheap electricity Monday through Friday and can use a little bit of gasoline here and there when they need it, versus a fuel cell, which is perceived at this point at least to require, less convenient, more expensive fuel, located in fewer places, that sort of thing. And then secondarily, even if the infrastructure becomes available, why not just put the hydrogen in a plug-in hybrid so that people can use the more ubiquitous, cheaper fuel most days and still have a nearly zero-emission experience, even in that last 20% or so. But instead, the conversation becomes so segmented of EVs versus fuel cells, even in, and especially in lately, the marketing for fuel cells itself.
I don't think that it is one versus the other. Realistically, it's electrification and increased electrification versus the traditional internal combustion engines. The goal is the increase in electrification. And at the end of the day, all automakers, including Toyota, as an entire set, have to offer enough options to get the consumers to upgrade from their current choices to these more electrified choices. And these are just one of many options along the way. With plug-ins, I agree, they're great technologies, and we're working on several, and like I said, I drive one. But the downside is, where I live, I can't plug it in. And previously, I actually worked on our demonstration program for fuel cells, and the nice thing was, when I drove one of those demonstration fuel cells, I did full electric driving all the time, because even though I didn't have plug-in capability at home, I could refuel. Is the infrastructure universal for fuel cells? No. Is it going to be something that we'll have to address moving forward? Yes. But it's worth trying to get more fully electric options out there so that people have options to move to. The
and that
more
all
we
sounds
have, the
lovely
better we
on
can do.
paper. I mean, that all sounds awesome, except that of the three main proponent automakers behind fuel cells at this point, which is basically Toyota, Hyundai, and Honda, Toyota has taken the most aggressive anti-EV between Toyota and Lexus campaign in its marketing and PR push for fuel cells. So that leaves some of the rest of the movement struggling to understand that strategy, especially after so many years of, Chelsea, how come you can't get your people to get off the fuel cell back? Finally, most of those EV proponents have kind of moved on. We've gotten everyone into a more kind of middle ground space, understanding that several solutions are better than the incumbents. And now we find, if you're not for us, you're against us. And, if you have any questions, you're a handbrake. And we really struggle to both see the path, but also understand the strategy of kind of, digging up those wounds again and rubbing salt in them, in terms of trying to get more people on board with where you're trying to go, especially as you also make plug-in cars.
Doug, is your audio working? I think you have a higher view than I do.
Yeah.
Help me!
I think I heard most of that, Logan, so I'll do my best to answer. Going off of what Logan was talking about, we're interested in electrification, and we are certainly taking a specific kind of approach to the electrification of the automobile in the future, and we're certainly placing a heavy bet in fuel cell vehicles. It's not to say at all that we aren't developing electric battery technologies and making sure that we can get into the market when we need to with battery electric vehicles when the time is right for us as a company.
Sure.
So it's not that that's not happening at all. We're just placing a certain kind of bet. It is fundamentally true. We believe that they're all related. We need all of them. We need them to serve different market segments that want different aspects out of a vehicle. And you can't just pick one silver bullet. And that's our approach, and has been, and it will be. In regards to pitting them against each other, we 100% agree. We shouldn't be doing.
Then why are you? What's with the anti-EV ads and the, if you have any questions, you're a handbrake, you're all in or you're all out on fuel cells type of
reduce oil usage, et cetera, Those are all goals that we want. Sorry, I didn't catch that, Chelsea.
No, I mean, I'm still trying to understand. If this is, Toyota believes in a portfolio of solutions type standpoint, then I don't understand the anti-EV stance that the company has taken in its advertising and PR push for fuel cells, And the notion of if you have any questions at all, you are handbrake and you're against the entire movement. And it's very much been presented as this polarized, you're all in, you're all out, all about hydrogen, and these other things are not solutions at all.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things you're seeing. So on the PR front, we've certainly stated that our opinion is, generally speaking, battery electric vehicles will serve shorter range commutes fairly well, and we think fuel cell vehicles will support customers who want longer range vehicles with a more familiar fueling experience. So that we kind of differentiate in terms of those roles between the two technologies. I think what you're getting at is some recent marketing that was very in place for the very specific conditions of that marketing and trying to sell a vehicle that was on the lot versus competitive technology. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we stopped running those ads, and we probably won't be doing that in the future because that's not the direction that the company wants to go. So I think we've moved on. It's time to embrace all the different technologies. Yes, again, we're putting a bet in fuel cells, and we think it has big promise.
So Doug, how does Toyota move forward as far as marketing this car, and what are the expectations from a sales perspective? What would be a win for Toyota at the end of 2015 or end of 2016?
Yeah, we've talked about trying to get to about 3,000 units over the next 2 to 3 years. That's our goal. It's pretty modest, but keep in mind we're launching only in California initially later this year, and then in the Northeast area coming in 2016, and we'll see how it goes from there. You're right. One of the key issues in terms of deployment of fuel cells is making sure the infrastructure is there. Yes, you have to do that. So you got to concentrate where you can build up a sufficient network, and then build out from there as you can. Conceptually down the road, you start once you've sort of those corridors as well. So that's the idea, but that's 2, 3, 4 years down the road after our initial introduction.
So Doug, I have a question for you, a couple, but I'll pace them out so as not to monopolize the conversation, of course. But and one has to do with something Logan has said a few times, and Doug, I've heard you say it, I think, talking about the electrification. Now, personally, when I think of a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, I don't think of it as an electric vehicle. So how is it that you're referring to something that uses a tangible fuel, something that is pumpable, something that is not purely electron-based? How can you call that an electric vehicle? Either of you?
Well, I'll let Logan weigh in on this too, but on the top of my head, it doesn't have combustion engine. So you're not burning anything. You're storing a chemical substance in a device that ultimately converts chemically into electricity, similar to a battery, not exactly. So you conceptually can think of a canister of hydrogen as a different kind of battery. Now, we would never specifically say that, but that's conceptually what it is. The rest of the architecture of the system looks a lot like an electric vehicle in many ways. Looks a lot like a hybrid vehicle in many ways. So I think from our perspective...
Oh, it dropped.
That was your cue, Logan.
Yeah, I'll jump in then. So it is an electric vehicle, and the reason why is that's what drives the vehicle. It's a pure electric motor. From an architectural and engineering design standpoint, the only difference is pulling out the battery, supplying all the rest of the basic load of the car, and generating that electricity elsewhere. Whether that electricity is sourced coming out of a battery, or whether that electricity is sourced coming out of a fuel cell, all the componentry, the architecture, the drive pieces, and the computers, the various integrated pieces such as your HVAC and all that are fully electric. There's no mechanical system like what we have in an internal combustion engine that drives any of those components. You can think in an internal combustion standard setup, you have like the serpentine belts, And some of those components are non-electric because they're being driven by mechanical force of rotating that's running off of that belt. None of that exists on this vehicle or any of the fuel cell vehicles that are generally on the market now, because they're just powered directly by the electricity. The only thing that comes out of the fuel cell is water out of the exhaust and electricity out of the other side. So there's not a mechanical source for the work. The electricity is what does the work for the entire platform of the car.
Okay, yeah. Thanks. I just felt that a good explanation of the functionality of the car and how you had talked about the electrification. If any of the listeners or anything may have been wondering the same question, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to explain it.
Thank you.
Hey, Patrick,
I've got one for you, Logan.
Go for it.
Your background there, I just have to say that they have the internet on computers now.
They do.
Yes.
They do. It's remarkable though that sometimes the old tech stuff actually is a whole lot easier to change and move around because unfortunately they don't build screens the size of this wall yet that I can afford or talk Toyota into paying for. So
I think you have a good case right there. And then second,
hear that, Doug?
Yep. Projectors. You can get a 130-inch projector for cheap. You had mentioned that you drive a plug-in car, but you don't have the opportunity to plug in. I'd like to say that if you worked at an employer that supported plug-in vehicles, you might be able to plug in at work.
I could plug in at work, and I did that actually when I first had the car, because we do have some charging options here on campus. That being said, here at work, there's many other people who have our RAV-EVs, which need to plug in, and so the plug-in availability I tend to reserve for them because it didn't matter with my car if I ran out. It mattered a whole lot more for them. So being a good community person, I didn't want to go out and move my car after my car was done charging because the car I drive charges in about an hour and a half. So it was sitting around a lot, taking up those spaces. So I just felt bad leaving it there the entire day when I didn't need the entire day.
Yeah, so that's a familiar story. So they have sort of just enough plug-in to get by, to maybe comply, but not enough to support everybody the way they'd like?
Ow. I don't know that it's like that. Having done a bunch of programs, I actually ran some of the electric vehicle programs before I came over to the fuel cell team. When you're dealing with the operations and the facility folks, for doing a lot of level 2 charging, the power draw is not insignificant. And for commercial settings, it generally requires a transformer upgrade that the power company makes you pay for. And the business case of turning that around as a complete charity write-off to the company is just a hard sell. So I'm just happy that we did it. Not every company does. Even some of my compatriots at some of the other autos don't have that option.
I think we'll find a significant variation in that scenario, especially on level 2. The notion that it across the board requires that type of upgrade is really more of a DC charging conversation.
Not necessarily where I'm at in Southern California, where the infrastructure was built out a good long time ago. Especially in new areas.
We can have that conversation with Ed Care later.
Okay.
And for workplace charging, level 1 is usually you're there 8+ hours, so that's usually more than enough.
It would be good with level 1.
I suspect to direct this back to topic.
Yep.
I think Evan had another question.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to take you to task a little bit on the notion that a fuel cell vehicle would be a better option for a long-range cross-country type vehicle compared to an EV, in that I think it would probably cost a lot more money to build out an infrastructure that would permit interstate travel and long-range travel that's going to blanket the entire country than it would so for electric vehicles, where a Tesla supercharging station is in the $250,000 to maybe $500,000 range. You know, a fuel cell station is a lot more, and you're going to have more of them because there's no real option for destination charging as there is for electric vehicles.
I would say that the data that I've seen doesn't fully back up your point. Looking at the support of the rollouts, initially you're correct because those stations exist now. But for fuel cells, each station supports a much, much larger number of vehicles. And so while the fuel cell stations do cost more, right now they're running about $1 million to $1.5 million for these early stations going into California from the numbers I've seen out of the reports.
That's
from
much
the
lower
government.
than I've seen. That's much lower than I've seen. And if you look at the numbers that that they're paying in Japan right now, it was significantly higher than that. Was it $5 million?
$5 million is what I saw
Per station.
I'm familiar with those stations, and those are not U.S. issues. You've got to realize Japan's an island nation that has to import everything. They have a totally different cost structure. Gasoline is also not $3 a gallon in Japan. So in general, you don't want to use your U.S. assumption of a cost basis across into the other countries because of the regulatory and building environments and resource pieces. Here in the U.S., like I said, here in California, you're running right around about $1.5 million in the early data that's come out from the state as they're doing the funding. Because here in California, the California Energy Commission has put up some funding to start the early station rollouts, similar like they've done with some infrastructure previously. And the cost matching percentages seem to indicate that that's what it's coming out to. The stations are just coming online, so we'll see what the final number ends up being. I reserve judgment until I see those final pieces come through. But we have one online now, another coming online at the end of this month, and another 10 coming online in the next 3 months. So that should be good enough to get us a sample size. Realistically, right now, you're absolutely correct. You cannot drive a fuel cell coast to coast. But that is the infrastructure piece. If people like this as an option, then the infrastructure will continue to roll out.
So would you agree that when to really be nationwide, you would need a similar number of hydrogen fueling stations as we have gas stations today? They're going to have similar range?
By far, no. There's been actually several government studies on that, nationally and even regionally. Here in California, University of California, Irvine has done a model that they call STREET, which is spatio-temporal resource energy, blah, something. I don't remember all the acronyms. But basically, they went through and looked at where you needed to have stations to support the volume of the market, and they ran it all the way through market penetration scenarios to where you ended up with 100% penetration as the upper bound. And what they found is you can cover the entire market with about 10% of the stations that we have with gas. And part of that is that there's a competition in gas, and so they're a lot more dense than they would actually need to be. It's kind of like Subways and Starbucks. I've actually been in a Starbucks and looked out the window and seen the next Starbucks, and some people may think that that's wasteful, but those other people didn't want to walk that 150 feet. They probably enjoy that. We have that same situation with gas stations right now.
Right. So, yeah, they're placed out where they're convenient for people to get access to. And if you had 1/10 the number of gas stations, it would be a lot bigger pain than it is today to go get gas.
I don't believe that it would be as big of a pain as you think. Would the gas stations need to be larger in those 10% of the spots? Yes. Would it necessarily increase your drive times? The model that the group came up with indicated not. That being said, it was an academic model. We'll see what turns out to be as it starts to roll out and we see.
And do you think the fueling stations are going to be able to scale up to the volume of vehicles? I mean, first there's fueling rate, which is significantly slower than gasoline, but the volume of hydrogen that they're able to fuel in a given day is also an issue when you hit that, scaling up to 100% mark.
Actually, it becomes far, far easier to do a bigger station than the smaller stations. Smaller stations are just a bigger challenge because of how you're doing all of your operations and back end and accounting for a P&L, for example, over a smaller volume of units. Just like any business, the greater your volume, the easier it is to pay for things. When it comes to the throughput, the fueling time at the stations is actually pretty much comparable to gasoline. The amount of energy transferred in that time is less, but that's because the fuel cell systems don't need as much energy thanks to the efficiency of both the fuel cell stacks and the electric motors.
So just doing some quick back-of-the-napkin math here, there's about 120,000 gas stations a day. If you said we needed 10% of that, so that's 10 to 12,000 hydrogen fueling stations. And again, using your $1.5 million per station, that's $15 billion of infrastructure that we need to roll out.
Yep.
To support how many vehicles? What is the market size assumption for that estimate?
I heard 3,000.
If it was that many stations, our number would be far higher than 3,000.
But that's a fair question.
We've got to tailor our volume to what the stations are now.
And I get that, but my question still stands. Because what's interesting is that in the 100 years of automotive production, there is only one type of vehicle in which the industry has required that demand predates supply, and that's plug-ins. Everything else, from hybrids to hydrogen to SUVs, the case has been just trust us, and we're going to build something and then convince you that you want it. So the ability to get similar sorts of information that's been required from plug-in proponents and programs has not been offered up for fuel cells. So we're talking about $15 billion worth of infrastructure for some number that's bigger than 3,000.
I'm not following you, Chelsea. I don't believe your numbers add up. So there was a lot of infrastructure investment by the government for the plug-ins and the batteries, and we needed it to get those markets going. Many of the programs that we have going today that are successes are thanks to the efforts that those early adopters and those advocates were able to pull together and do.
No question, I haven't said otherwise.
Advocates on the fuel cell side similarly advocating for the infrastructure support there. I don't believe that there's a one versus the other mentality that has to persist. Do some groups go for it? Sure, but at the end of the day, on society basis, we need the electrification, however we get it. And not everybody is going to be willing to make the lifestyle choices to pick the exact same types of vehicles because they may live in an area. Yeah, and they may live in an area where one technology works for them and the other technology doesn't. What we want to do is provide the options so that we can try and get society to move forward towards increasing electrification. And
totally get
Toyota's lucky enough to have that option.
Yeah, no, I get that, but you still said we need 10 to 15,000 fueling stations at a cost of $1.5 million.
I did not. That was Evan who said that. So just to be correct, he said how many would be needed if you had universal coverage. Universal coverage for fuel cells is not in the near term. I will freely and openly admit that because the stations are not there. We will grow as the stations and the infrastructure grows out. And nor is it realistic to think that you should set up a station in the middle of our most rural areas of the country right now that do have gasoline stations, because you need to develop the support network and the infrastructure training for the people to support that. We have to develop the support for the dealer side too. So there's this, don't take this by any means that we want you to go out and convert the entire U.S. in one fell swoop, because realistically, we would have to build a whole lot more factories to get that many cars ready.
Of course, but you offered up that the percentage of stations required is roughly 10% of gas stations. We know how many gas stations are on the road, so you're welcome to dispute that number, but we know what it is. And all we're trying to get to is something bigger than 3,000 to support the request for for more infrastructure? Who is it that you are expecting will build that out? Do you want? Is it going to be industry created? If it's going to be government created, who do you expect will be the providers of that infrastructure from a retail perspective?
With the vehicles there, we talk with a couple of infrastructure providers we have right now. It is government sponsored with industry sponsorship as well. And we'll see where it goes from there. Nobody wants to sponsor everything for long periods of time. So it's coming together with the collection of volume of vehicles to support those stations.
I have a question about, and I think Tony has a question after this, but while we're talking about the stations a little bit, I am completely ignorant to some of the ins and outs of the hydrogen stations. I know that there's the one across the street from the Toyota campus. That's the only one I've ever seen, and it's a standalone station. Are hydrogen stations, is the technology ever there in the future for like a hydrogen pump to live alongside a gasoline pump, or are these going to be entirely new buildings and land that has to be bought and that kind of thing?
That's a great question. The one you saw that's across from Toyota is very much the exception. The only reason it was a standalone was actually because Toyota gave a free lease to the station provider to build that. The vast majority of the stations being built in California and the ones that are being planned on the Northeast are pumps within a regular gas station, just like a diesel pump would be added to a regular gas station or an E85 pump.
Okay. Thanks. Tony?
Yeah, actually, and then more questions keep bubbling up. But so one of the things I got from the website, the Mura website, was an estimated 300 miles per tank.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So, all right, a number we can agree on. All right. So if I have a 30 mile per gallon car and I buy a gallon of gas, $3 a gallon, and to $2.50-ish around here in Chicagoland.
I'm jealous.
Okay, $3, and that 300 miles is going to cost me what, $30, right? So it's going to take 10 gallons to take me 300. Do you have any calculations right now to indicate what a full tank of hydrogen is going to cost?
We're actually waiting for the station owners to tell us their final prices as they go live. And Toyota's, because of that, working on a solution which I'll let Doug talk about because I don't want to steal his thunder on it, to address the uncertainty regarding the fuel price up front. I will say here in California, I'm very jealous of your 250. I just filled up yesterday, and it was $3.69 after I used my my Vaughn's discount of 10 cents a gallon.
Ouch.
And I was complaining because gas went up to $2.50.
Yeah.
I have no idea how much gas costs
Y'all are
anymore.
just making me
Blah,
sad
blah,
now. Making me sad. I dream for those days.
Yeah. All right. So, Doug, you've let Logan talk for too long now. He's got to take a break.
Which is a really smart policy in general, just to let him talk. But yeah,
I'm not sure about that.
What he was referring to is the fact that we're going to offer complimentary fuel to our early Mirai customers. And we outright acknowledge, if you do the math and you look at what initial forecasts are for a kilogram of hydrogen, and you pencil that out, it's going to be expensive. And that's because it's still a nascent market in terms of developing it for a vehicle fuel. So we know that's the case, and to support introduction, like any good OEM that's introducing a new technology, we're going to take care of our customers by offering complimentary fuel. So the details of that we don't have yet. We're going to be announcing those in the next 2-3 months here. But that's the idea, is we want to take that off the table as a concern for any customers that are thinking about this as a cost of ownership issue. And then, down the line, I think if you were to ask any expert in terms of what's the forecast, you're going to get a lot of different estimates on what the price of fuel is going to be. Generally speaking, they're all going to decline, but by how much? nobody really knows. And I think that the general assumption is you're certainly going to have more competition in the marketplace over time, and that will help the supply side drive down prices over time. So anyway, that's the initial introductory phase where we're going to be offering the complementary fuel.
So, Doug, I have a question then for you, just to follow up on that. As I understand it, part of the problem with hydrogen fueling is that there hasn't been an agreed upon official standard or way to measure it. Is that correct?
I'll take that one.
Okay, Logan.
I'm more familiar with the technical side. Actually, there is an agreed upon standard. It was just ratified actually at the end of last year. California had been studying it for quite some time because the standard itself didn't change. What was changing was the technology that they were going to choose in how they were going to do the measuring. So with gasoline, for example, when you drive up to a pump, you see a little sticker, and it's usually from the Department of Agriculture in your state. That's part of the weights and measures. Mm-hmm. And it tells how much gasoline gallons are being dispensed out of that particular machine and making sure it's registering correctly since it's billing you for an amount basis. So for hydrogen, it being a very small molecule, it's a little more challenging than gasoline to count how much is going through. And so they were going through and looking at several different types of sensors to do that measuring, and came up with a solution that they thought they liked, and was the station owners seemed to have liked as well, because it was well into their appropriate cost targets from what I heard. And that standardized as well as the fueling rates and how the stations operate. So the stations, like you mentioned, there was one across from Toyota. That was a research station that was part of the testing that California did to learn about those types of things on the station side, because we had automakers building cars, and we had the luxury on the automaker side to build tens and then hundreds of cars, and are in the process of gearing up for thousands, but you don't build infrastructure at that kind of scale. And so there was several programs by California and by the national government with the National Renewable Energy Lab to learn about how those stations were going to work, so that whenever we did this launch, this technology would be ready to go from day one.
Okay. So, I mean, just so I'm clear, what you're saying is everything's copacetic. You guys have a great way of measuring the fuel. If you wanted to sell it, you legally could, and it
yes.
wouldn't be a problem there.
And there is actually a station that's live now that does do sales. It just went live last month, I believe, up in West Sacramento. And it's the first of the ones that use that new retail certification. The stations that you had before, the research stations, most of those, just to give a little context to it, the people operating those stations, their goal for operating it wasn't to operate it as a typical station in fueling. Their goal was research. They wanted to learn how the various systems work together. And so the level of equipment that the state was going to require to do a measured sale just wasn't something that was on the radar that they were willing to do in the most recent year. And then before that, there was disagreement on what should be that measurement, because one group advocated for a pressure-based measurement, another group advocated for a weight-based measurement, and a third group was advocating for a volume-based measurement. And of course, each of those would be a different way of measuring.
Sure.
And so there was groups that came together, both from government and industry, to settle on what those standards should be, and finally culminated at the end of last year and wrapped up.
Okay. And that standard is the SAEJ 2601.
Oh, stop with your numbers, Paul.
Oh, you just Googled it.
Spot on.
So,
What does Hyundai do with the Santa Fe?
What Hyundai is doing is, because they're using those research stations, which aren't going through and offering retail fueling, they're doing fuel inclusive in their lease right now. Daimler did a similar thing with their demo program, as did my program that I was running previously. The fuel was inclusive of participation in those programs.
And are you guys leasing the Mirai, or are you going to be able to sell it as well, or is it just a lease?
I'll let Doug handle this one.
Yeah, no, we'll be allowing it to be purchased and leased. So the lease will be $499 a month, and the purchase price is $57,500.
$5 a month.
Wow. 5750. Hey, real quick.
Yeah, for you, just for you, Tony.
As my parting shot here, I just want to drop in a comment, and we can agree to disagree or as it, but I think I've heard from both Logan and Doug tonight and in the past about increased electrification and how EVs and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles can travel parallel paths or equal paths or similar paths, and they're both good because we're getting away from gasoline, which generally speaking is a very good thing. I do want to point out, whatever you guys are intending on the inside at Toyota, I think what people are seeing on the outside is a real divisiveness from Toyota, from Lexus, on your marketing. Just this week, earlier, we had an engineer whose name escapes me from Japan talking about big problems with EVs and how they were going to crash the grid, kind of stuff that we sort of dealt with a year or two ago or more with EVs and plug-ins. You know, the Volt's going to crash the grid. You know, and the Volt hasn't crashed the grid, and lots of people are plugging them in. They're plugging them in a lot. So I guess what I want to say is I think, for lack of a better way of putting it, maybe a little better message control in TMS. Just a suggestion. Now, somebody had a question. No, Tony.
I had one final question, and this is something with EVs. So I want to make it clear, I'm not just attacking hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, but anytime I talk to someone about electric vehicles, if they're not a supporter of electric vehicles, the first thing they come back with is, well, but your electricity has been generated by coal, and coal is dirty, and therefore that's a dirty car. So I'm going to have to ask you, and in your dream world or current state versus future state, where is the H2 coming from?
I think that what we're going to see here in California, for example, there's a 33% renewable hydrogen mandate as part of the station's funding from the state. And most of that initially is going to come from actually landfill biogas for that 33%. And the other 66%, you're going to see some portion of that. My guess is probably about somewhere around 60% of that's going to end up being natural gas, traditional natural gas. And then you'll end up with a smaller portion being from the other hydrogen sources. There's several electrolysis stations, for example, because the state funded a little of all of the above in their funding of stations, because it allows for nice things. They can make it from a lot of stuff. That being said, over time, what is the best vehicle for each and every personal individual will change as society moves forward, our grid mixes move forward, and where we live. And what we want to do is just make sure that people have enough options so that they can pick the cleanest ones, so at the end of the day, we end up in the best situation as an entire environment and community.
Logan did the freeze.
Ran out of fuel.
Oh no. Doug, are you still there?
We lost Logan.
Doug, run over to Logan's office.
Yeah, that was cutting out there, but let's try it again.
He's trying to come back.
Well, let's since we're just about out of time, what I want to do is just kind of give everybody one last shot for some, like, give me a something short and something that will hopefully be a short response. Kelsey?
I've had enough of a challenge getting the questions I already asked answered, so I'll hold off till next time.
Okay. Evan, anything from you, sir? You got to unmute the mic first.
Yeah. No, I don't. I guess I don't have anything. The only thing I'd reinforce is what Russell was saying earlier, that there should be something done to reduce the divisiveness. hydrogen's got an uphill battle is, and you get a big part of the EV world against you. That's not going to help your battle at all.
Nice one. Okay. Let's see. Who else? Patrick.
Yeah, I'll go on the same note there. If Toyota were making electric cars today, if they were serious about it, if they were putting them out and in more than compliance numbers, and then you said, and we're working on fuel cells for the future, I would be totally behind that. Instead, what you're saying is, we're doing the minimum amount of plug-ins, and fuel cells are the future, and that's where we're putting our money, that's where we're putting our investment, and anybody who thinks that those cars can be significant more than just an urban commuter are wrong.
Tony Schaefer.
Well, I first of all, are we going to do shout-outs later?
Yes. Sure. Much
okay.
later.
So I just want to make it very clear to Doug and Logan specifically, if Toyota learns that you can get hydrogen by extracting it out of beer, please don't.
Promise.
You actually do that, but we agree with you. It's not the best way.
Morris bandwidth is killing Logan. Hey, so I want to give the last word to Doug and Logan, and each of you separately. You guys have something you want to say? Parting shots, Doug?
No, I just think we're, this kind of debate is great. That's the important thing, is to have the debate about all the different technologies. What are the pros and cons? What is society going to accept, and what are they not? And we're embracing that. We're not shying away from it. Keep doing it. We do enjoy it. We do appreciate it. And we have a point of view. And I think we're not afraid to talk about that. So let's keep it up.
Mr. Grizel.
Well, I'm just saying that you're invited to talk. Not every day you get to talk with your crew.
He's gone full Stephen Hawking on us.
For billions of years.
Sorry, Logan, we lost you again. I don't know if you can hear me.
I have really bad signal, so maybe dying. Did that work?
I just
You guys need to sell some more cars and maybe up your bandwidth.
It's it's like time and cons.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to both of you for coming on and facing the questions that we all kind of have, and that your existing customer base has, and potentially your future customer base has. I think that there's some stuff answered tonight that I didn't know about. Chelsea might disagree with that, but there were certainly some.
No, she agrees you didn't know.
But I would just like to say, I guess, good luck to Toyota with the path that you're going down. If it means less fossil fuels in this world and we can move away from the natural gas usage, then I would be all for it. But so we'll see what comes out of this.
Oh, I did have one more question for Doug in particular. We've seen pictures of the outside of the Mirai and the inside, and particularly the dashboard. And which parts look very similar to the next generation Prius?
Tony, you would have had to ask nicer questions to get that one answered.
So how is it that you keep your head so cleanly shaved, Doug? It's beautiful. I can almost see myself in that.
I see where this is going now. So don't worry. Maybe I'll give you a few snapshots of this after the show's over.
Absolutely. Hey, I want to say on behalf of the show and agree with Danny, thank you very much, Doug Coleman, Logan Grizel from Toyota Motor Sales USA, for coming on and sitting in the hot seat, as it were, with us on hydrogen. We appreciate it, and the door is always open. Anytime you guys want to talk, we would love to chat, because that's what we're here for. And thanks very much, guys.
Yeah, I do want to say thanks. As harsh
Thank you, everybody.
As harsh as I was, I am a Toyota shareholder, and you guys have been doing great for me. So thanks.
See, there you go.
Fair enough.
Well, you guys can hang out if you'd like. That's Logan and Doug. We're going to do a quick little some shout-outs, and then we'll wrap it up, Russell.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, we'll have to kind of see, where it's going. But unless you guys want to hang out, go have a night, because you've had a long day at work. And thank you guys for hanging.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Catch up with you later.
See you, Doug. See you, Logan. If you can hear me.
He's in the dark now.
And Chelsea got kicked off and is trying to come back on. So, there we go. Apparently, it is a problem in torrents.
Uh-huh.
All right, Logan's gone.
So do we?
We needed about 3 more hours.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew that was going to be an issue. There's torrents.
And there it is.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I forgot to put that out there.
Chelsea's gone again.
I think the internet in California crashed.
Yeah.
It's run on water.
It's running.
They're out of it. Yeah.
Fueled from
I mean, here's my defense. Here's my defense of Toyota. These guys don't get to decide what Toyota makes. They get products from Japan from their bosses in Torrance, and those people say, sell this stuff. So, in a way, I mean, it's their job, and they're well paid for it, and they're very good at it. They're coming up to take bullets for stuff that they didn't necessarily whittle themselves. And, I mean, cheers to them for doing it.
So if you want to defend the 2 people on the show, that's fine. But defending Toyota as a whole, no, Toyota's got to own their own thing. And they're the representatives, so they got to own it.
Right, but even if we made great arguments, and they couldn't just go, "Wow, you're right. You know what? I think this was a bad idea." They cannot say that. That would be even if
that would be some awesome footage, though.
The one thing they weren't going to say is, "You know what? You're right. We suck. Why are we doing this?"
Right, so they're in a tough spot.
The number of times we've heard, "Oh, we're not using that advertising anymore." I did even ping somebody at their favorite utility about this whole thing. We can't even do workplace charging, and the direct response is on exactly the same topic. They just hired Morgan Spurlock to do a video on.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
With no small amount of EV kicking in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Can I point out Austin Kinzer's great comment over on the Google Plus event page right now?
Of course.
How do you follow all that?
Austin says, "This episode is giving me anxiety."
Good. Sometimes a little anxiety is a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little cognitive dissonance should create anxiety. I mean, I don't think you watch or participate in this episode and come away going, "Oh, it's all cool. It all worked out. Everything, like it didn't. It's kind of a mess." They're a consumer company making a product that some of us don't get and doesn't make sense. And from their perspective, they're a multi-billion-dollar global multinational going, "Oh, we've got a plan. Trust us." And we're like, "Huh?"
Well, and that's just it. I don't think anyone debates their right to have a strategy. I mean, look, every automaker does in a whole variety of different ways. It's the refusal to have the real conversation, and yet their bitterness over the fact that folks like us have questions. Sort of, how dare you have those? We just trust us, while demanding minutia of information from every other approach. You have to, provide the entire plan and all the data to back it up to even talk about something with a plug or various other solutions. But when it's hydrogen, it'll be fine. It runs on unicorn farts. Just don't even worry about it.
Right.
Chelsea, I'm glad they came.
She said unicorn first.
Oh, we never said it.
I'm out of beer. I'm out of beer.
I call him as I see him.
All I have is water.
Take a drink. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, so at least they did come on, because this is exactly the kind of stuff they need to do. And what's the quote from Henry Ford? If I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So
Right.
maybe Toyota's going to be right, and 10 years from now we'll all be driving fuel cells. I really doubt
Faster
it,
unicorns.
but they can try.
Well,
I'll be riding unicorns.
And based on
that's
conversations
totally
I've
fine.
had with them, this is a very long-term approach that they have, and I think it's very based on what TMC sees as the long-term Japanese requirements. And
This
TMZ?
long-term approach started 20 years ago.
1960. What are you talking about?
But let's also be clear. Toyota and its subsidiaries owns literally half of the market in Japan. It is not Toyota waiting on what the government wants. It is Toyota dictating that as much as anything. So this is not, we're at the mercy of these various governments from Toyota's standpoint. With other automakers, that is more true than it is for Toyota. But there's two approaches here. It's either understand people are going to be skeptical until you build cars, just like we were with Leaf and Volt and everybody else who said, we're going to come back with something new, and we all kind of went, yeah, whatever. We'll believe you when we actually see it in a showroom. So either take that approach now and be willing to prove it, or be willing to have the real conversation, but with actual information instead of talking around the questions that you feel like answering. That's it. Otherwise, you can't complain about the skepticism.
Interesting side note, I saw on Twitter today that the Japanese Prime Minister is going to be visiting Tesla's headquarters tomorrow. Timing with their
I'm
announcement?
sure he is.
No. I mean, I think Chelsea makes a really, really good point, which is, all of this with Toyota would be a little more believable, from my personal perspective, if they weren't hand-building freaking Mirais.
Yeah, that gets back to Danny's point. This is a long-term vision. So why not make plug-in vehicles today?
Well, that's the other part of my thing. Is like, okay, so and quit with the timid plug-in program.
Exactly.
Offer a good plug-in, offer a good EV, whatever. If you really believe in multiple paths, that's fine. Prove it. Make the
Yes.
cars.
The plug-in Prius does not count.
Yeah, don't make 1,500 RAV4 EVs and go, hey, we're done. Sci-fi, we did it, yay.
Yeah, I own one of those, Connor.
But
Back off.
but you
It doesn't
can't
count. Especially yours.
you can't
Well,
get 9
now-
carbon credits though with the plug-in vehicles like you can with the fuel cell.
Right.
They'd have to build 5 times as many.
As far as the hand-built Mirai, weren't the Roadsters hand-built? Were those mass-produced?
No,
You're talking about a startup versus a major corporation.
right.
Well,
I would call those hand-built, but I would still remind people that there were more of those built than Toyota plans to do of the Mirai anytime soon.
Okay. I'm not debating a startup versus a major company. I'm talking about a gamble on a new technology and a new entry. That's simply all the connection that I was making.
Yeah, no question. And the reality is, if the marketing and PR effort and expectation was in line with that volume, there would be no argument. I frankly have no issue with the fact that Toyota and Honda and Hyundai see a different path and are going down that path. But to call the Hyundai Santa Fe the first mass-produced fuel cell at 400 units a year, no EV maker on Earth, including the Tesla Roadster, would have gotten away with that. Same thing with this. If the PR spend and effort was in line with a few thousand units in the next few years, fantastic. With these TV political ads, the anti-EV trashing baloney, and hiring Morgan Spurlock to do documentaries doesn't scream, we're going to kind of do some pilot programs and kind of dip our toes into the fuel cell waters and build an ultimate pathway. It screams, we are protesting too much. We are doing a hugely disproportionate. Yeah.
Not to knock you off that momentum, but
Jump in front of a train, go for it, dude.
well, you guys will enjoy this because I haven't done a good Danny's Honda rant in a while. But what's your opinion on Honda doing like the triple faceted approach where they've got the Fit EV, they've got the plug-in Accord now, and then they've had that Clarity thing for years. Are they doing another generation of a Clarity anytime soon, or is their fuel cell program kind of dead?
Well, no, their fuel cell program is very much alive, and they actually have been showing off those cars, particularly in the last couple auto shows. They have far fewer details around it. I mean, the one thing that we've been able to do in the various advocate conversations is at least get Honda to understand this whole issue of quit screaming until you have something to show or are willing to have the conversation. So they have, to their credit, become far less antagonistic and far quieter, frankly, about all of their programs until they're willing to show something, because the Fit EV and the Accord plug-in hybrid are both absolute compliance cars. I mean, dozens per month, and the Fit EV's finished in general, although they're doing some releasing. But there's no argument about the fact that those are compliance cars. And then they've announced vaguely that they'll be doing a plug-in program in the next few years. What that is, who knows? It was a one-line sort of throwaway comment in Detroit. And also they've been showing their new fuel cell concept at the last couple auto shows. So they're clearly still more on the hydrogen path, but they're at least a bit more normal in that path. They absolutely believe they've not erred towards plugins at all from a public perspective, but they're at least not sitting there beating up everybody else until they have something to show. So, you know, I think there's a lot yet to be. They're a bit more normal in the path.
So you approve?
I don't agree that they'll necessarily have the success they're hoping for, but I don't have any beef with the current approach that they're taking. I still keep inviting them to have the real conversation, and we haven't quite gotten there about what it is that they seem to see that the rest of us don't, that makes fuel cells the obvious way. I mean, all of the automakers are still kind of approaching that as, you know, sort of a pat, pat, pat on the head. If you could just see what we saw, Chelsea, you would understand. Well, fine. I'm 12 miles from your headquarters. I'll come sign your NDA. Let's have that conversation. I'm fine with it.
Okay.
And yet that conversation never happens.
It never does. I keep offering, because all three of the hydrogen proponents are within an hour of my house. So it would be so easy to do.
Yeah.
Oh, and you can go to that beautiful new Hyundai headquarters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Alrighty then. Are we wrapping this up? Is that where we're at?
let's wrap.
Let's wrap it up. Okay. Tony, you were very concerned about shoutouts.
Well, yes, only because I'm ashamed to admit that I missed a shout-out last week, and it was due to my own oversight. My friend, my dear longtime friend, Mr. Bill Maddox, had a birthday last week, and I forgot to wish him a happy birthday.
Well,
So I expect everyone now to sing happy birthday to Bill.
I'm ready.
Okay, maybe not.
I want to
Not
hear
if Danny's
Cooper sing, actually.
Yeah, not if Cooper's going to sing. Okay, so
I think our best birthday gift is not to sing.
yes, there we go. So my shout out to Bill and to John Brewing and Glenn Hutchinson, and Dave Lauer, and of course Austin, who we know is watching, and Mark Cobb and Tom Stengel. Hey Tom, who's out there? Yeah, you know, thanks guys for watching us. Also Bruce Nalraki, who gave me the idea for the "Where's the hydrogen coming from?" question, and also Lee Moon, of course. One final shout out to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who knocked the Detroit Red Wings out of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Is that a shout out or?
That's like the most diverse group of shoutouts I think anyone's ever attempted.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
impressed. Mr. Connor.
Yes, I started with my earlier shout out to the Kingsmen, and are you going to play a little music for us? Can you do that?
Right.
And we do have
All right.
to go.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Evan, I'm almost ashamed to call on you right now.
I'm celebrating Tony's friend's birthday
Yes.
in top style. I think that's what we should be doing.
Mhm. I should mention it is Jonathan Tay's birthday as well.
Oh, well, happy birthday,
There you
Jonathan.
go. But I only have one cake.
Oh, everyone's
too
camel, apparently. Miss
Do you
Chelsea.
have any shout-outs other than maybe you'd like to shout out AAA this week, Evan?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Yeah.
Evan, you definitely don't want to miss next week's show.
Yeah.
I want to.
So
I'm
I must say,
dropping that hint.
AAA did take good care of me.
I'm just saying, you definitely do not want to miss next week's show, Evan.
Yeah, that guy did not show up with a smirk on his face.
We're going to play all 5 minutes of you running out of power.
Oh, great.
You should have never put that video on the public interwebs.
Oh, mistake 1, running out of power. Mistake 2, posting it
Are we
to
still talking
Facebook.
EVs?
Yeah, one of those Tesla things. You know, the quick charge thing. Yeah.
I thought those things had endless range.
There's no range anxiety with the Tesla.
So did Evan.
Thank you, whoever that was.
That was me.
That's beautiful. Miss Chelsea.
Laugh it up. Laugh it up.
Miss Chelsea, any shout-outs from you this week?
Just to all of you for letting me join your party once again, and to Toyota for being willing to join the conversation at all.
Very well said. Very well said. Cooper, you want to take the lead, and then I'll finish up?
Sure. I also would like to thank the good folks at Toyota for joining us. We appreciate it. If any of the other OEMs from within an hour driving distance of Chelsea would like to come on and chat more about hydrogen vehicles, we're certainly interested in, I think, everybody's perspectives on it. Because I think one thing that hydrogen really has going against it is the enthusiast community that is kind of perplexed by it. And I think, coming on and actually becoming a part of the conversation is a step in the right direction. So thanks to Toyota, and thanks in advance to Hyundai and Honda for coming on and talking with us. Right? Hint, hint.
Absolutely.
Just want to...
I'm sure they feel very welcome now.
I just want to tell everybody...
Phone's ringing. You want to come on the show?
If you are
If
you're a Prius owner, and I know of one new Prius owner, Austin Kinzer, he's back in a Prius. You can check out PriusChat.com if you are looking for any accessories for your car at great prices. Check out PriusChat.com/shop. I'd appreciate it because it helps to pay for stuff like diapers and daycare.
Are you still wearing diapers?
I am. I recently moved back into them.
I mean, I appreciate that your wife doesn't like cleaning up the messes, but wow.
Juna's
We've been
size
meaning to
4
speak
diapers.
to you about that.
Juna's size 4 diapers are a little small, but they cover what's necessary.
I already know way more than I need to know. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. I also want to thank, obviously, Doug Coleman and Logan Griselle from Toyota. Thank you guys so much for coming on and spending an hour at the end of your long business day when you could have been home with your families or out drinking, for that matter, or playing golf or whatever it is you do. Thank you for being here with us. I also, big, above and beyond, thanks to Chelsea, Evan, Patrick, Tony, and of course my friend Mr. Cooper for being a great panel and holding your feet to the fire. You guys were awesome. I didn't talk much because I was having fun listening. So I guess that's like one of the downsides of actually being on the show. Sometimes you just want to listen. So
Yep.
That's where I was.
You can download it tomorrow.
Absolutely. As always, I want to thank Michael Mannering for our theme music. You can visit him at manthing.com. Please do. Please buy a song or two on CD Baby or iTunes. Michael Mannering deserves your support because he supports this show by giving us free theme music.
Be sure to check out whatdrives.us for all the episodes of the What Drives podcast. You can check out every episode going all the way to the beginning because Russell spent like 2 days putting every episode back on the website after we had to kind of reconstruct it. So that's whatdrives.us. We also have all the videos up from all the episodes that we've done via video, which is since we've returned to doing the podcast. Check it out there. You can sign up with iTunes. You can sign up with whatever your favorite podcatching thingy is. We've got the RSS feed if you want to go that basic. So check us out. If you have questions, you want to call into the show and leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on the air, 575-51-DRIVE. That's the phone number, 575-51-DRIVE. We do the show every week, 9 o'clock, on Google's Hangouts system. So go over and plus us or add us or whatever you do in Google Plus, and you'll get a notification about the show, and we also throw it up on Facebook. So check us out.
I'm not sure we want whatever you do.
I think actually the phrase "throw it up on Facebook" is pretty much accurate.
Pretty much what everybody does, right?
Yes, I think
Given
so.
what we do is pretty much throw it up on Facebook. Nice one, Cooper. By the way, nice cut in there.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
that's it for this week. Once again, thanks to Toyota, thanks to the panel. And if you want to find out, oh wait, did I screw it up?
Yes, you did. That's awesome.
Well, that was your job to screw it up, Danny.
Wow.
It usually is. And I was messing with him earlier tonight.
It
saying
was.
that he
I
should
was
do it
supposed
so
to
I
be
don't
like
mess it
the
up.
closing pitcher who comes in and instead I fucked it up. So
And the last 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth.
Find out. Thank you, Evan, or whoever that was. Download us next week and find out what drives us.
We gotta go now.
Bye bye.
There we go.